Hong Kong. The police in Hong Kong on Friday arrested at least 3 prominent activists and blocked plans for a march on Saturday, a sensitive political anniversary, as the authorities intensified their crackdown on an opposition movement that has shaken the semi-autonomous Chinese city for months. Joshua Wong and Agnes Chow, student leaders of the pro-democracy demonstrations in Hong Kong 5 years ago that presaged the current protests, were arrested on Friday morning, their political organization said. Andy Chan, who led the now-banned Hong Kong National Party, was taken into custody Thursday night at the Hong Kong airport, he said on Facebook. The arrests were the latest in a dramatic week of events in Hong Kong, where tensions were running high after 3 months of protests touched off by widespread anger over legislation, since suspended, that would have allowed criminal suspects to be extradited to mainland China for trial. In addition to the arrests, Hong Kong's chief executive, Carrie Lam, said the government was considering whether there were other measures the city could take to establish order. China sent in fresh troops to the territory, and the authorities denied permission for what was widely expected to be a well-attended demonstration. The marches have been arguably the most effective way for residents of Hong Kong to draw attention to their anger. One rally reportedly attracted nearly 2 million people, about a quarter of the population. The arrest of prominent activists during sensitive periods is a common tactic by the authorities in mainland China, but such tactics are highly unusual for Hong Kong, which has its own legal system and far greater protections for civil rights. Many people questioned whether the arrests would do anything but drive continued protest turnout. This past week, we have seen scare tactics straight out of Beijing's playbook: pro-democracy protest organizers attacked by thugs, prominent activists arrested after being snatched from their homes and streets, and a major rally planned for Saturday banned, Man Kay Tam, director of Amnesty International Hong Kong, said in a written statement. Activists were hoping to hold a large rally on Saturday, the 5th anniversary of a decision by the Chinese legislature to impose strict limits on elections in Hong Kong, but those plans were firmly thwarted by the authorities. The police this week rejected an application to hold a large rally and march to the Chinese government's representative office in Hong Kong to mark the anniversary of the decision, which helped inspire the 2014 Umbrella Movement, and then an appeal was turned down on Friday. The Civil Human Rights Front, which has organized several large, peaceful marches attended by hundreds of thousands of people, expressed dismay at the ruling but said it would abandon the march. Bonnie Leung, a prominent member of the group, called the ban a total violation of the basic human rights of Hong Kong people. The movement will not be down because of the decision of the appeal board, she said. We will carry on. We will continue to apply for marches, and Hong Kong people, I'm sure, will keep coming out to the streets. Jimmy Sham, another Civil Human Rights Front official, and Max Chung, who had applied for another protest in July, were attacked in separate episodes on Thursday. Mr. Sham was uninjured, but a friend who protected him was hit on his arms by a person with a bat. Mr. Chung was hit on his arms, back and neck by men wielding pipes and umbrellas. Mr. Wong, 22, was arrested at about 7:30 a.m. on the street near a subway station on the south side of Hong Kong Island, his political organization, Demosisto, said on Twitter. Ms. Chow was also arrested, and like Mr. Wong sent to police headquarters in Wan Chai, the group said. The police said that Mr. Wong and Ms. Chow were arrested on unauthorized assembly charges related to a June 21 protest, when thousands of people surrounded the police headquarters. Mr. Wong became a widely recognized face of the 2014 Umbrella Movement. As a skinny, bespectacled teenager, he could often be seen on the streets, exhorting huge crowds through a megaphone. He has been sentenced twice to short prison terms for convictions related to the 2014 protests, and he most recently served 2 months this year after being convicted on charges related to the clearance of a protest site in Mong Kok. He was released in June, just as the protests over the extradition legislation began. Mr. Wong remains a prominent figure in Hong Kong politics, but his profile and influence in the current protest movement are much lower than it was in 2014. Ms. Chow was a spokeswoman for Scholarism, a prominent student activist group, for part of the 2014 protests. Mr. Chen led a small, pro-independence political party that became a focus of attention last year when the Hong Kong government banned it under a colonial-era public security ordinance. The rare move raised concerns that it would threaten free expression and association in Hong Kong. He was arrested on suspicion of rioting and assaulting a police officer during a July 13 demonstration. Unlike the Umbrella Movement, the current protest effort has embraced no identifiable leaders, in part because many high-profile figures, like Mr. Wong, ended up in prison. The arrests came after other developments that reflected frustration from China and the local government in Hong Kong with the enduring protest movement. Mrs. Lam, the chief executive, said Tuesday that the government was looking into all laws in Hong Kong if they can provide a legal means to stop violence and chaos, when asked whether she was considering use of the sweeping emergency regulations ordinance. 2 days later, the Chinese military sent fresh troops in the early morning darkness to its Hong Kong garrison. Beijing described the move as a regular rotation of its forces, but in light of warnings from mainland officials that the military could be used to quell unrest in Hong Kong, it raised questions about whether China was positioning its troops for a crackdown.